Hi students, welcome to the Structural Engineering lectures and welcome to a new playlist on the material testing lab, strength of materials lab. Right? In today's class, we shall see the spring test, wherein we will try to find out the stiffness and modulus of rigidity using the AMSA's universal testing machine. In the previous class, we have seen how to conduct the tensile test on the mild steel rod to establish the stress strain characteristics using the same AMSA's universal testing machine. I hope you are enjoying the discussion. Then don't forget to click like, share, and comment to our YouTube channel. Now let us see the this is the brief profile student. I'll not just go through. You may just go through this, right? Wherein I am working as the professor at the Department of Civil Engineering, University College of Engineering, Osman University, Telangana State, Hyderabad. Right now, you may just go through this brief profile, right? My research areas are reinforced cement concrete design, steel structural design, structural analysis, point element analysis, architecture engineering, and bridge engineering and structural optimization, right? And most of the time I'm actively involved in various consultancy works that are offered by the department and completed over 770 design proof checks and 150 designs of the RCC, steel, composite, low-rise, high-rise, multi-story buildings and that of the road and rail bridges, right? Now, once examine this brief profile, let us move to the top the spring test, wherein this is how I'll be conducting the spring test on a given close coiled helical spring right? Therefore the experiment the discussion will be had in three parts. One, we'll first see what is the aim, apertures, a description of the theory, the description of the machine as well as the procedure in the first part. In the second part, we'll conduct the experiment using this AMSA's universal testing machine. In the third part, I'll show how to make the calculations as well as the graphical calculations and tabular calculations and how to get the results as well as the inferences and comments. Right now, let us see first part, student. Right, this is a spring test. The aim is to determine the stiffness and rigidity modulus of the given spring right now. However, before I go for the actual discussion, right, where we'll encounter the springs is that even if I take a pen or pencil, right, we will be generally having the springs within this, right? Or even if I take a motor vehicle, right, two-wheeler, right, there will be having the shock absorbers, right? They are the examples of these springs. Or even if I take that of the railway wagons, right, they are supported on the springs, massive springs, right? Even we do have the lorries or trailers will be having the leaf springs, right? These are the different or a bicycle will also be having for the stand, right? a that spring will be under tension, whereas these springs will be under compression, right? The bike is having a tension as well as compression both, right? Now that is how the either these springs may be under compression or tension, right? Now, however, we'll conduct the experiment using this spring, the compression subjected to compression force, right? Wherein what is the apertures required? We do have the AMSA's universal testing machine for conducting this experiment as well as vernier calipers for measuring the diameter of the spring specimen, right? This is a theory, student, right? However, just now I told that there are mainly three types of the springs, right? One is the helical spring, and the second one is carriage or leaf springs, and the third one is the flat springs, right? However, the main function of these springs is that they absorb the shocks. Just now already explained. The application of this application of the theory of the torsion arises in the case of the helical springs, right? However, equating the strain energy by spring to the work done on the spring. However, this derivation we already done in strength of materials or material testing. We just go through. I'm just recalling this as a black box where we have proved that C is equal to 64 WR cubed N divided by deflection is equal to 64 WR cubed divided by C d to the power 4, or that may also be written as 4 NR cubed W divided by R to the power 4 delta, because I want only what is the shear modulus. What is the shear modulus or modulus of rigidity of the given spring, right? Where n is a number of turns of the given spring, and capital R is the mean radius of the coil, and small r is the radius of the rod of the spring, and W is the axial load. Here we are applying the compression load, and delta is the deflection of the spring, right? And C is the shear modulus or modulus of rigidity of the given spring. Now, also, the stiffness of the spring is defined as the load per unit deformation, load per unit deformation or unit deflection. Therefore, stiffness is equal to load by delta, that is equal to notated by small s. Therefore, substituting with now this modulus of rigidity will become 4n r cubed s divided by r to the power 4, right? Now, however, let us see the brief description of the machine, student, right? We are using Amstrad universal testing machine, wherein this is a vertical type compound lever universal testing machine. Now let me show this, right? This is what the machine which we already used same arrangement for tension test also. The same is now being used for the spring test also, right? However, it consists of two gripping heads, one lower and the other upper. Now these are, right, these lower and upper gripping heads, right? And here the lower gripping head can be rapidly adjusted to any initial distance from the upper gripping head by means of a crank. Let me show this, right? Therefore, this can be moved by means of this crank. Therefore, it can rotate over this, and it can either come down or it can be brought upwards, right? Now that is how the crank and the crank for loading the specimen, the lower gripping head is brought down either by motor or by rotating the handle, which is provided for the purpose, right? However, even as the lower gripping head is lowered, the upper gripping head also goes down, right, with the point A of the beam AB about the fulcrum point P. Consequently, the point B goes up. In turn, it pulls the point C of the lever CD about the fulcrum F, right? A pendulum LM is attached to a rack and pinion arrangement which operates the point P to indicate the load, right? Let me show that pendulum LM, right? This is how that pendulum LM to which the weight is attached, right? However, here I require just a small load, not more than 0.5 tons, right? Hardly I'll be applying not more than say 30 to 40 kg for this spring. Therefore, I'll use this 0.5 ton, wherein this is without this additional weight, and even this is that additional weight. If I this put weight, then even it can be loaded up to 2.5 tons, right? If I just put that weight here, right, additional weight, it can be loaded up to 2.5 ton, or even by adjusting to the top, even I can load up to 5 tons also as appropriate, right? As appropriate. Now, once we see this brief description of the machine, student, now let us see the procedure. Right now the procedure is like this: that adjust the machine for the suitable capacity of the experiment and correct to zero error. Keep the spring on the lower plate and raise it with the help of the cranks. Now I'm showing this, right? And therefore this is already there in the position, right? Therefore it is there in the position, right? And until the spring comes in contact with the upper platen, right? Now lock the crank by a pin provided for the purpose, so that it may not turn back during the test, right? Note the initial reading or the vertical scale attached with the machine. I'll show that, right? Now this is how we do have, right? Once I lock this, right here, I am locking so that it will not come down, right? It is already locked, student, right? Now you can see here lock is provided, right? Whereas here there is a pin arrangement on this deflection measurement arrangement, right? Deflectometer, where pin is indicating here the 0 to 1 inch, right? Which is divided into say 5 parts, right? 0.2 1 by 5th inch, 2 by 5th inch, so on and so forth, right, up to 10 inch. This is the this can measure up to 10 inch, right? That is how the deflections can be measured, right? Now, once we note the initial reading on the vertical scale attached with the machine, it will be adjusted to 0 student. Now compress the spring by rotating the crank manually in anti-clockwise direction so as to produce a deflection of either 1 centimeter or 1/5 an inch, 1/5 an inch, which is read on the scale. Generally now I am applying 1/5 an inch by rotating, just by rotating this. I'll provide an handle here, right? A handle, right? Therefore I'll provide that in anti-clockwise direction so that this load is compression load, it will go on the other side of this dial gauge, right? Therefore leading to compression of this spring, right? Such that I'll record 1/5 an inch or approximately 10 mm, right? Or even 1 centimeter also as appropriate. However, here the readings are in terms of inches. Therefore, I'll apply 1/5 an inch, right? Then once I do that, I'll note down the corresponding load for this deflection, right? Now proceed with further, maybe to second observation as 2/5 inch, third one is 3/5 an inch, fourth one is 4/5 an inch, or fifth one is 1 inch, right? Therefore like that for 5 observations, right? Proceed the experiment for the increasing values of the deflection and record the corresponding load on the dial gauge until the spring is compressed to such an extent that the coils are very close to each other, means they will become solid, right? Repeat the experiment releasing the loads, right? Now you unload by rotating it in clockwise direction. Thus for each of the value of the deflection, corresponding load is also noted down, right? Hence the stiffness of the spring may be calculated. Knowing the stiffness of the spring, even I can calculate the modulus of rigidity for the material of the given spring. This is what the schematic just now we have seen, even in tension testing also, student, right? Whereas now let us move to conducting the experiment, right? Now
welcome to the material testing lab, students, right? In the previous class we have seen the tension test using Amsler's universal testing machine, right? Using the same machine, now we want to find out the shear modulus of the given open coiled helical spring, right? Or even closed coiled helical spring may also be given, right? Of a given spring, right? Therefore, now for this also the experimental setup is the same experimental setup as is that of the tension test, Amsler's universal testing machine. This already explained in the previous class, right? Or in the previous tension test explanation, right? Here there is only change compared to that of the previous one is that here we will have the two platens instead of the wedges which were having the jaws. Now those jaws are now removed from these wedges and we are putting the top platen and as well as the bottom platen. Or these are also sometimes called the gripping heads. Alternatively, we can also call it as the top gripping head and the bottom gripping head. Or you will simply say top platen as well as the bottom platen, right? And now, for conducting this experiment, you will be given a spring. Either it may be a closed coiled helical spring, right? Open coiled helical spring. Now you are supplied with closed coiled helical spring. Therefore, I am now just showing a closed coiled helical spring wherein now what observation I need to take is that first observation is that I need to measure the diameter, the internal diameter of this coil is the first observation, right? Therefore, I am taking a vernier calipers and I am measuring the internal, right? internal diameter. Therefore, I'm just measuring the internal diameter. So now you can see I've just locked right. I've just locked right there, right. I have already locked right. Now I'm just removing and noting down the reading, right. Therefore, now it is showing a reading of right. 4 is the main scale reading, right, and the vernier coincidence 4 centimeter, right, and the vernier coincidence is 2. Therefore, now the final reading is that now I'm saying that this is the internal diameter of this spring coil is 40.2 mm that I have obtained, right. And similarly, now what I'll do is that now I'll measure the diameter of this coil rod, right. Even you can measure, right. Now it is now working out. I'm just having 5 mm is the main scale reading, student, right. 5 mm is the main scale reading, right, and the vernier coincidence. Therefore, if I add both of these, it is now working out 5.1 mm, right. Therefore, once I get the diameter of this coil, even I obtained previously the internal diameter of the coil. Now I can get the external diameter of this coil. I need not measure, right. Therefore, that now that can be obtained by adding this diameter, right, 2 times, right. 40.2 internal diameter plus 2 multiplied by 5.1. Now that works out, say 53.1. I am not measuring that because even you can do that, no problem. But because I already obtained internal diameter and I obtained the diameter of the coil rod, therefore I am calculating the external diameter, which is this 40.2 plus 2 multiplied by 5.1, which is 53.2. Therefore, once I take this, now next observation is how many number of active coils are there, right. Therefore, for which now you can see that the top surface is chopped off, right, like this, right. So that the plate will be in perfect contact with the top surface, as well as the bottom platen is also in perfect contact. Now you can see, right, if I don't chop off, then this will not be having a perfect contact, right. Therefore, for that reason, what now I'll do is, right, I'll leave 1 ton, right. Therefore, after 1 ton, now I'll start counting the active coils, right. Therefore, this is a 1 ton, right. Therefore, first you leave 360 degrees where the area is chopped off. After 360 degree only, original diameter is seen. Even you can see original diameter is seen, right. Therefore, now I'll count active number of coils. Number 1, right, 2, 3, 4. Now please see, student, right. After that, even one more ton is there, which is inactive. At the bottom, 1 ton is inactive, and even at the top, 1 ton is inactive. Therefore, remaining 4 tons are active for this given spring. That is the next observation, right. Once I take the observations on the given spring, now I will start the experimentation, right. I already told that here we need to apply very smaller loads, hardly not more than say some 30 to 40 kg. Therefore, for which purpose we'll be making use of this handle, right. Whereas in the tension test, we have made use of the electric motor, right, which is exerting the hydraulic pressure, right. By turning on the electric motor, right, the oil will be pumped, right. Oil will be pumped to exert the hydraulic pressure, right. Now I am not using that because there the tension test almost we have gone up to say roughly 2 tons, but I am not applying that much of heavy load, hardly some 30 to 40 kg only I need to apply, for which now I have fixed this handle, right. Now we are placing the spring in between the top and bottom platen, right. Top and bottom platen. Actually, this bottom platen will be at the lower location, right. There we can see circles will be there, right. seeing through those circles, right, we'll put, right, almost the circle at the center of the circle, so that the load is applied axially through the longitudinal axis of the spring, the closed coil spring, right. That is how that care is already taken, and even we have lifted this head, and we have fixed, we have locked actually, right. What now I am showing is it's already locked, right. Now locked, right. Therefore, we already locked. I have already locked. Therefore, now we are ready with taking observations. Now, therefore, once we are ready, now this is the dial gauge, student. Whereas in the tension test, we have almost applied a load up to 2.3 tons. But in this experiment, I will not be using that much of heavy load. At maximum 0.5 tons I am fixing, right. Therefore, now you can see at the back of this, I do have a frame, a loading frame, wherein in the previous case, when I put this, we could able to apply 2.5 tons, or even by changing the position on the rear side of this loading frame, even I can apply up to 5 tons. But once I remove this extra weight, right, without any weight, additional weight, we can apply up to 0.5 ton. Therefore, if you come on the rear side and see, there are the 3 marks which are seen physically as 0.5 ton, and 2.5 ton at the bottom, and as well as 5 tons. Now I have fixed at 0.5 ton. Therefore, the maximum load which can be applied is only 0.5 ton. Accordingly, this dial gauge I have fixed. Even I can remove this and I can put the other dial gauge. In the tension test, I have fixed 2.5 dial gauge. Now I have removed that and I have put 0.5 ton load dial gauge. Right? Now once we are ready with this dial gauge, load dial gauge, now we will start experimentation, because the specimen is in position between the top and bottom platens, right, or gripping heads, right. And even now at this point of time, you can see the load is 0 on the load dial gauge. And the third one, the second one is, now you can see here, this is a deflectometer. This is the deflectometer, over which the deformations of this spring will be measured. Now you can see that we do have a pointer here on this deflectometer, where we do have the deflections, right, 0, 1 inch, 2 inch, 0.5 inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, so on and so forth, up to 10 inch. Therefore, this is a 10-inch deflectometer. Therefore, now what we'll be doing is that we'll be conducting experiment from 0 inch to 1 inch. 0 inch to 1 inch, right? Because we'll be applying the loads within elastic limit, 1 point, right? The second point is that even by the time I apply 1 inch, almost this spring will become a solid. Therefore, beyond which we should not apply any load. Otherwise, that will be called inelastic load, inelastic stresses. They are not acceptable, right? Whereas within elastic limit only, the moduli is defined, right? Then now we will have on the deflectometer 0 reading, right? This needle is indicating 0, while on the load dial gauge, 0 load. These are the two zeros. One load dial gauge is indicating 0, right? And the deflectometer is also indicating 0, right? Therefore, these two zeros are seen first. Then now I will start experimentation, right? Now, in order to apply compression force, right, using this handle, I need to rotate in anti-clockwise direction. You please see, I am applying the compression force by rotating this handle in anti-clockwise direction, right? Till what I need to rotate? Don't say towards this load, right? Only you go on rotating, while this deformation from 0 to 1 inch is divided into 5 parts, right? That is 1/5 inch, right? I just already marked it with pencil there, right? And 2/5 inch, right? And 3/5 inch, 4 by 5 inch and 1 inch. That is, I have just divided that 1 inch into 5 parts. Therefore, approximately 1 inch is equal to 25.43 mm, student, or say roughly 25 mm. Therefore, now I go on rotating this, means I am applying the load, applying the compression load, which is transferred because it is already in gear position. Therefore, this load is transferred to the spring, right? The spring, you go on applying till the deformation. The deformation is at the 1 by 5 inch. Now let us see, right? I am just applying this, right? I am observing this, right? Therefore, now almost I am reaching towards the first observation. The first observation, yes. Now almost I am reaching. Yes. Now you can see that I have reached, right? The very first observation, 1 by 5 inch. 1 by 5 inch. Against which, now let's stop applying load. I stop applying load. Now I'll observe what is the load corresponding to that 1 by 5 inch or approximately 5 mm deflection. For that 5 mm deflection defined 1 by 5 inch deformation, what is the load, compression load? Now I can observe that from this dial gauge, right, which is having almost, right, 0 to 0.5 tons, right, 0 to 0.5 ton. Here I do have 5 kg, 10 kg, right, 2 means 20 kg like that, right, 50 kg, right, 50 kg like that, right. Therefore, now I am having only 5 kg is seen. 5 kg is seen. Now you can see this, right? Almost this needle is there at 5 kg, right? During the loading, I am there in the first position as loading. I am just loading, right? Therefore, now I go on applying the load. Once I note down that first observation, load as 5 kg during increasing load, right? Now apply further for taking the second observation. I will go on applying the load till I reach 2 by 5th inch. 2 by 5th inch means 10 mm approximately. Then accordingly I will just note down the reading of the load. Reading of the load is 10 kg. 10 kg, right? And similarly you take the other observation. Other observations are 3/5 inch, right? 3/5 inch, right? 4/5 inch, 5/5 inch, right? Accordingly, I have noted that at 3/5 inch, I do have a load during increment, right? During increasing load, I do have 18 kg, right? Whereas 4/5 inch, 20 mm, I do have a load of 25 kg, and finally for 1 inch, right? I do have a load of say 33 kg. Therefore, I just stopped at that junction, right? At 1 inch, I have just stopped. Then what now I'll do is I'll now unload. I'll unload. Therefore, previously I have applied the load, compression load, by rotating this handle in anti-clockwise direction. Now for unloading or decreasing load, I am decreasing the load. Therefore, now I need to rotate this handle in clockwise direction. Now you can see once I am applying, rotating this in clockwise direction, the load on the needle, the needle on the load gauge is moving towards clockwise direction. Previously it rotated in anti-clockwise direction. Therefore, that is how I'll just note down from the last 1 inch, right, 25 mm to I'll go to the next observation is 4/5 inch, 20 mm, right? For 20 mm now I'll just note down what is the load on the dial gauge, right? Now it is 29 kg. However, during increasing load I got 25 kg. Now during decreasing load I am getting now 29 kg, right? Like that you go on decreasing the load by rotating this in the clockwise direction, means I am actually applying tension force, right? And you stop at the second observation, that is 3/5 inch, right? Which is 15 mm, at which now I have to have a load of 22 kg, right? Likewise, you go on reducing to further to 2/5 inch. 2/5 inch means 10 mm, at which the observation from this dial gauge is equal to 14 kgs, and the next observation is that of the 1/5 inch during decrement load, right? Now I do have that observation from dial gauge. Load dial gauge is 7 kg. Therefore, once I am there at 150 kg, further I will reduce till I reach to the zero value. Now you can see that I am applying tension force till I get the zero, right? Therefore, once I reach the zero value, then I'll just stop and I will see what is the load here, right? Therefore, still I have not reached yes, and I am there at the zero deformation. Therefore, correspondingly, here the load of the dial gauge must show 0 kg only. But now you please see that there is an error. What we now is showing 2 kg. Previously, we have started from 0. But during decrement, now it is showing 2 kg. Means there is an error. Therefore, this error can be deducted from the previous readings, right? Therefore, after deducting, you will get all the correct readings, right? If at all you are having some error. However, here when I have conducted experiment, right, there are no errors, right? Almost I am reaching 0. However, now when I am explaining this, now there is an error of some 2 kg that can be deducted, right? Now once I do this, now let me show the calculations on the, now this is of the calculation, student, right? Yes, student, right? Just now I have given these observations and internal diameter of the coil is equal to 40.2. That I have measured, already told, right? And I have measured this diameter of this coil rod as 5.1 mm. Actually, I get the diameter, but I have noted down that diameter as 5.1 mm. Therefore, from it now calculated what is the external diameter of the coil. Capital D is equal to 40.2 plus 2 multiplied to 5.1 is equal to 53.1. Therefore, what is the average mean radius? Average mean radius of this coil, right? Coil spring, which is called capital R, which is the average of internal diameter plus external diameter. Internal diameter plus external diameter. That divided by 2, it works out as 23.32 mm. And the radius of this coil rod is equal to diameter by 2, which is 2.55 mm, small r, and number of active coils is equal to 4. And this is how the observations what I have. Just now, by this demonstration, we have started at zero deformation, for which 0 load, right? I have gone to 1/5 of an inch, which is 5 mm, right? To the relation, this I am writing R unit, right? Up to the second decimal or fourth decimal as appropriate, 5 mm, right? Corresponding to that, I have observed from the load dial gauge 5 kg during increment load. Then against this 2/5 inch or 10 mm, I have observed the load as 10 kg. For 3/5 inch, I have observed the load as 18 kg. For 4/5 inch, 20 mm, I have observed the load as 25 kg during increasing, and lastly for 1 inch, 25 mm or 25.043 as appropriate. The load is 33 kg. Then during decreasing load for 25, I will just load on the same 33. Now I will decrease the load to 4/5 inch, where I observed 29 kg. Similarly, for 3/5 of an inch, the load is observed as 22 kg, and 2/5 of the inch load is observed as 14 kg, and 1/5 of an inch the load is observed as 7 kg. And further, when I got to 0, almost it is matching with the 0. Or if it is not matching with the 0, let us say it is not 0, let us say if it is 1, then what you need to do is this one value you deduct from others. Therefore, this 7 minus 1 is equal to 6. 7 minus 1 is equal to 6. 14 minus 1 is equal to 13. Therefore, this is 21. Then this is 28. That is how this error should be deducted from the other readings. However, in the last reading you did not deduct because it is already carried over here, 33 by 33. Therefore, this is the, now you get the average of these two. 0 plus 0 is equal to 0. Right? But don't say 0 plus 1 is equal to some 1.5. That is not acceptable, right? You say that is 0 when there is no load, no deformation, no load, no deformation, right? And now you take the average of these increasing and decreasing load. 5 plus 7 divided by 2, I get 6, right? If at all there is an error, 5 plus 6 by 2, 5.5. 5.5 kg. Right? That is taken the average of these 2. 10 plus 14 is equal to 12, 18 plus 22 is equal to 20, 25 plus 29 is equal to 27, 33 plus 33 is equal to 33. These are the loads corresponding to this much of deflection. Now you can calculate what is the stiffness. Therefore, this load divided by this deflection is the stiffness. Then once you get the stiffness, small s, then you substitute into this formula to get the rigidity modulus or the shear modulus as given by C, notated by C, Rn is equal to 4 capital R cube N S divided by R to the power 4, small r to the power 4, Newton per mm square, right? For all these inputs are available. Now you just substitute to get the result in terms of Newton per mm square. Newton per mm square. So do the calculations, manual calculations, right? And take the average. Take the average as the final modulus of rigidity of this given spring. One from table calculation, and also second one is now you draw a graph. I want to calculate the modulus of rigidity from the graph also, for which now you draw a plot between the load and the deflection on the x-axis and the load in terms of kgs on y-axis. Therefore now you just note down, right? Therefore for 5 mm deformation I have to have 7 kg load. Here this is 5, this is 10, right? Therefore where is the 7? Therefore I have just marked as the first point, right? Likewise you please mark other points, right? Therefore corresponding to 10 mm the load is equal to 12 kg, like that I have just marked all the points, right? 5 sample points are there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you draw a best fit curve. How it need to be drawn? The best fit curve must be passing through the horizon, right? And you take this curve, let us say first trial, wherein you try to put equal number of points to the left of the curve and equal number of points to the right of the curve, and almost all the points must be very near to that of the proposed curve for the best fit curve, right? Whereas then you propose such curves, first curve, second curve, third curve, like that, right? Therefore, out of all these curves, right, now what I need to do is that you measure the perpendicular distance by dropping the perpendiculars. You measure the perpendicular distances, right? These D1, D2, D3, right, so on and so forth, right? D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, right? Therefore, now you take summation of all these D's starting from 1 to 5, right? Di square. If this value is minimum, for any one of these curves, let us say you have got 1, 2, 3 curves, right? Therefore, you have the 3 results, right? Out of this, whichever is minimum, that curve is the best fit curve, satisfying this principle of least squares, right? Therefore, that is how once I get this best fit curve, then you take the maximum ordinate to maximum abscissa, which is the slope of this curve, right? Therefore, note down what is the slope over this ordinate, right? Therefore, just note down that ordinate in the numerator, the denominator that slope. Therefore, now I do have from that slope is nothing but here the stiffness of this spring from the graph. So many kg per mm, you say so many Newton per mm. Once I get this slope from this graph, you substitute into this formula to get the modulus of rigidity of this spring as 4n r cube divided by small r to the power 4 multiplied by this slope, which is the stiffness. Therefore, there is once you get this graph, now you report the results as for the given spring, for the given mild steel spring, close coiled helical spring, 1 from the tabular calculation is, right, the modulus of rigidity is equal to say some particular value, some 0.6822 10 to the power 5 Newton per mm square. 2 from the graphical calculations, right, the modulus of rigidity is equal to say 0.6311 10 to the power 5 Newton per mm square, right? once these calculations are done, then you also do the inference calculations, right? Inference calculations also, right? Assuming Poisson's ratio as of this mild steel as say mu or 1 by this one as a 0.25. You already know what is the shear modulus. Therefore, now you can get the Young's modulus as is equal to 2c into 1 plus mu, right? That is how you already know what is c value. Just substitute that, right? E is equal to 2c to 1 plus mu, and even the bulk modulus can be obtained. As say k is equal to 3. Even by substituting that, now you will get the bulk modulus also. In inference calculation, once I assume the Poisson's ratio of this steel as 0.25, then you already know what is the C value. Right? Therefore, the shear modulus, substituting that, now I'll get towards the Young's modulus of this steel is equal to 2 multiplied by C multiplied by 1 plus mu or nu, where we use the Poisson's ratio of this steel, which is 0.25. Even we know the other relationship is as E is equal to 3k into 1 minus 2 nu. In the previous step I got Young's modulus. For now you get the bulk modulus, right? K. Therefore now you report these as the inferences, comments as assuming Poisson's ratio of the given closed coiled helical spring as 0.25, the Young's modulus is equal to, let us say, some 1.98 10 to the power 5 Newton per ohm square, and the bulk modulus is equal to say approximately 0.5433 into 10 to the power 5 Newton per mm square, right? That is how the calculations, including that of the results and inferences student, right? Okay, we'll see now the next experiment as the torsion experiment, right? Till then, bye students.
Yes, student. Once we conduct the experiment, now let us see the observations, right? The first observations, this is my observations, right? Therefore, the observations are like this, that just measured internal diameter of the coil using the vernier calipers. It worked out 40.2, and I am measuring the thickness of the rod also, of the coil, which is equal to 5.1. Therefore, the external diameter of the rod, actually even that also I have measured. I am directly noting down as 53.2, but it is better you don't do this. Therefore, you just measure the internal diameter of the coil turn, that plus 2 times the thickness or the diameter. It gives this the external diameter. Therefore, that is how the external diameter of the coil can also be obtained. Now I just noted down by measuring the vernier calipers, right? Therefore, the radius of this rod is equal to 5.1 divided by 2.55 mm, and the mean radius of the coil is equal to capital D plus small d, which now works out at 23.52 mm. And we also measured the number of active coils, right, which is equal to 4, right? These are my different observations, student, right? Now, and also while conducting the experiment, I already noted these observations that for 1/5 an inch means approximately when there is no load, right, no deflection, right, that is how the no calculation there, right? However, when we applied 1/5 an inch, right, approximately 5 mm, then the load was observed during in the loading. It was observed that it was 5 kg, whereas during unloading, right, it was observed that it was 7 kg, right? Therefore, we have increased the loading to 10, wherein I got 10 kg. For 15 it was 18, for 20 it is 25, and for 25 it is 33. Therefore, in unloading also that 33 remains the same. However, when I have unloaded to 20 mm, I observed 29. Similarly, for 15 I observed 22. For 10 it is 14, and for 5 it is 7, and last it is 0. Therefore, now I don't have 5 here, I do have 7. Therefore, now I'll take the average load in kgs. Therefore, 5 plus 7 is equal to 6, and similarly the other averages are 12 and 20, 27 and 33 respectively, right? 33 respectively. Therefore, that is how. Now let me do the specimen calculation with respect to this second reading, wherein for which I do have second reading means here the average load is equal to 5 plus 7. Just now I told it is equal to 6 kg, whereas the deflection corresponding to that load is equal to 5 mm, right? 1/5 an inch. Therefore, the stiffness is W divided by delta 6 divided by 5. Or if I multiply with 9.81, I'll get 11.76 Newton per mm. Therefore, the modulus of rigidity C is equal to 4n r cubed ns divided by r to the power 4, where capital R is equal to 4 multiplied by 23.35 whole cubed multiplied by number of active coils is equal to 4 multiplied by 11.76, right, is the stiffness just now we have calculated in Newton per mm. That divided by 2.55 10 to power that multiplied by 4 to the power 4. Therefore, this modulus of rigidity or shear modulus will work out say 0.5663 10 to power 5 Newton per mm square. Therefore, that value I'm just noting down here, right? 0.5665. Like that, you just calculate for others also, student, right? Like this, now I'll get 0.5665 10 to power 5 and 0.6291 10 to power 5 and 0.6373 10 to power 5 and 0.6231 10 to power 5. Therefore, now you take the average of all these 5 readings, which works out, so say 0.6045 10 to the power 5 Newton per mm square, right? Therefore, that is how I've just calculated the average, which is 0.6045 10 to the power 5 Newton per mm square, right? Once we are done with the tabular calculations, now what I'll do is I'll plot a graph that from the readings I'm just noting down that the first reading was like this, right? The deflection was 7 mm, whereas the load is 6 kg. Therefore, now I'll take the load on the y-axis. Therefore, now I'll go to the 6 kg. Therefore, my 1 unit on the y-axis is equal to 3 kg. Like that, I've noted up to 48 kg, whereas my unit on x-axis is equal to 1 unit is equal to 0.25 mm. Sorry. Therefore, once I note down that, however, 0.25 centimeter, 0.25 centimeter means 2.5 mm, right? Whereas I require for 5 mm, therefore 5 mm 6 kgs. Therefore, now I do have 5 mm means 0.25 centimeter, right? Here this is 0.5. Therefore, 0.5 means 5 mm 6 kg. Like that, for the second observation, third observation, fourth observation, and fifth observation. Now you please see that however, when no load is there, no deformation, 0. Therefore, now you draw a best fit curve by taking care of equal number of points are there to the left as well as to the right, and draw the perpendiculars from these and measure those perpendiculars, and you square up all those perpendicular distances, right? Therefore, using the least squares principle, right, whichever curve has the least value as summation of all this di whole square is the best fit curve. Let us say I'm showing the best fit curve. Therefore, now I'll take over the large area the ordinate to an abscissa. Therefore, my ordinate is equal to 33. Now abscissa is equal to 2.5 centimeter. Therefore, the slope is equal to 33 divided by 2.5. It works out say 12.936 kg per centimeter. Now I'm just recalling that. Therefore, that is how my slope is equal to 12.936. That 33 divided by this one. Now I'm converting that in terms of Newton per mm. 12.936 Newton per mm. Therefore, the modulus of rigidity from this graphical calculations is equal to 4 multiplied by n is equal to 4 and capital R is equal to 23.35 whole cubed multiplied by this 12.936 divided by 2.55 whole to the power 4. It works out say 0.5972 10 to the power 5 Newton per mm square. Therefore, I got the modulus of rigidity from the graph also, right? Now, next one is the inference calculations. Assuming the Poisson's ratio of the steel material, which is a standard value mu r is equal to 1 by m is equal to 0.25. However, we know the relation between Young's modulus and the modulus of rigidity as E is equal to 2c into 1 plus mu, where C is the modulus of rigidity and E is the Young's modulus. Therefore, mu is equal to 0.25. Substituting which, now I'll get what is the value of Young's modulus. Even the second relationship is that we also know the relation between Young's modulus and bulk modulus, that E is equal to 3k into 1 minus 2 nu. Once you get this E value, now you substitute that in that equation so that you can calculate the bulk modulus also. Therefore, now I just obtained those results, right? The assuming Now let me write the results. Therefore, these are the results for the given mild steel specimen. The modulus of the rigidity from the tabular calculations. There is the average of those 5 results is equal to 0.6045 10 to the power 5 Newton per mm square, whereas from the graph, right, which is 0.5971 10 to the power 5 Newton per mm square. Almost here and there I got the same result, right? Same result. Even the inferences are like this, that the assuming Poisson's ratio of the mild steel specimen as 0.25, the Young's modulus of the given mild steel spring, it can be calculated using this formula just now already told, that that is equal to E is equal to 1.5162 10 to the power 5 Newton per mm square, and bulk modulus of the given mild steel spring is equal to K is equal to 1.0108 10 to the power 5 Newton per mm square, right? This is how by conducting the spring test, I got the modulus of rigidity as well as the other moduli, right? Okay, student, if you have really enjoyed the discussions what we had in today's class, right, don't forget to click like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel, right? We'll meet in the next class with another experiment on the torsion test, right? The torsion test on the mild steel shaft, wherein we'll find out the modulus of rigidity, right? Till then, bye bye students.